Raymundus Lullus, Clavicula. Send messages and notes to Institutum Lapidarium Philosophorum, ILP, P.O. Box 994, Merlin, Oregon, 975532 USA C. Gier. Biographical note on Arnold de Villeneuve. Arnold de Villeneuve was born around 1245 France, as attested by Symphorianus Campigius and Joseph by Hazy. As for the precise place of his birth, it is uncertain. He studied dead languages in AIX, medicine, Montpellier. He came to Paris to perfect himself, popular rumor accusing him of necromancy and alchemy. He fled to Montpellier, where he was soon appointed professor. Then regent. In 1755, still in Montpellier, his house bearing carved on the facade a lion and a snake biting its tail. The thirst to learn makes it pass in Spain. It professes some time alchemy in Barcelona, 1286, and learns Arabic. He then visits the famous universities of Italy, Bologna, Palermo, Florence. He returns to Paris, but his heretical proposals, having excited theologians against him, cautiously fled to Sicily, where Frederick II took him under his protection. Pope Clement V reached the stone, summoned Arnold de Villeneuve to him with a promise of forgiveness. Arnold embarked for France. The popes then sat in Avignon, resolved into mercury. Therefore, this mercury is the prime matter of all metals. I will teach more ways to do this transmutation, thus destroying the opinion of those who claim that the form of metals cannot be changed. They would be right if metals could not be reduced to their raw material, but I will show that this reduction in the matter first is easy, and that transmutation is possible and feasible. For everything that is born, everything that grows, multiplies after its kind, like trees, people, the herbs. One seed can produce 1,000 other seeds. So it is possible to multiply things ad infinitum. From what precedes, the one who analyzes things will see that if the philosophers spoke in an obscure way, at least they told the truth. They said, in effect, that our stone has a soul, a body, and a spirit, which is true. They compared his imperfect body to the body, because it is without power by itself. They called water a vital spirit, because it gives the body, imperfect in itself and inert, the life which it did not have before, and that it perfects its form. They called the fermented soul, because as we will see later, it also gave life to the imperfect body. It perfects it, and changes it into its own nature. The philosopher says, change natures and you will find what you are looking for. This is true, because in our magisterium we first draw the subtle from the thick, the spirit of the body, and finally the dry of the wet, that is to say the land of water. This is how we change natures. What was below we put above, so that the spirit becomes body, then the body becomes spirit. Philosophers still say that we made our stone of a single thing and with a single vessel, and they are right. All our magisterium is drawn from our water and is done with it. It dissolves metals themselves, but not by changing into the water of the cloud, as the ignorant believe. She burns and reduces to earth. She turns bodies to ashes. It incinerates, bleaches, and cleans, according to what Morian says. The azoth and the fire cleanse the brass. That is to say, wash it and completely remove its blackness. Brass is an impure body. Azoth is quicksilver. Our water unites different bodies between them, if they have been prepared as it has just been said. This union is such that neither fire nor any other force can separate them by combustion from their igneous principle. This transmutation steals the bodies, but that is not the vulgar sublimation of simple-minded, inexperienced people, for whom to sublimate is to elevate. These people take calcined bodies, mix them with sublimable spirits, that is to say mercury, arsenic, sulfur, etc., and they sublimate the whole with the help of a high heat. The charred bodies are carried away by the spirits and they say they are sublimated. But what is their disappointment when they find impure bodies with their spirits more impure than before? Our sublation does not consist in elevating. The sublimation of the philosophers is an operation which makes something vile and corrupted by the earth something purer. Similarly, when we say commonly, so-and-so has been raised to the episcopate, by raised is meant that he has been exalted and placed in a more honorable position. In the same way we say that the bodies have changed in nature, that is to say that they have been exalted, that their essence has become pure. We see therefore that to sublimate is the same thing as to purify. This is what our water does. This is how we must understand our philosophical sublimation on which many have been mistaken. Now our water mortifies, illuminates, cleanses, and vivifies. It first makes the black colors appear during the mortification of the body. Then comes many and varied colors, and finally whiteness. In the mixture of water and the ferment of the body, that is to say body prepared, an infinity of colors appear. This is how our magisterium is taken from one, is made with one, and it is made up of four, and three are in one. Learn again, Venerable Father, that the philosophers have multiplied the names of the mixed stone for the better cactier. They said is bodily and spiritual, and they did not lie. The sages will understand. For it has a spirit and a body. The body is spiritual only in the solution, and the spirit became corporeal through its union with the body. Some call it ferment, others brass. Morian says, the science of our magisterium is comparable in everything to the procreation of man. First, coitus. Second, the design. Third, imbibition. Fourth, birth. Fifthly, nutrition or diet. I will explain these words to you. Our sperm, which is mercury, unites with the earth, that is to say, with the imperfect body, called also Mother Earth, the earth being the mother of all the elements. This is what we mean by coitus. Then when the earth has retained in itself a little mercury, it is said that there has design. When we say that the male acts on the female, by which we must understand that mercury acts on the earth. This is why the philosopher said that our magisterium is male and female, and that it results from the union of these two principles. After the addition of water, that is mercury, the earth grows and increases while whitening. We then say there has imbibition. Then the ferment coagulates, that is to say, it joins the imperfect body, prepared, as has been said, until its color and appearance are uniform. This is birth. Because at this moment appears our stone, whom the philosophers have, called the king, as it is said in the Pete. Honor our king coming out of the fire, crowned with a diadem of gold. Obey him until he has reached the age of perfection. Feed him until he is great. His father is the sun. Its mother is the moon. The moon is the imperfect body. The sun is the perfect body. Fifthly and lastly comes food. The more it is fed, the more it grows. However, lice feeds on her milk, that is to say, from the sperm which engendered it in the beginning. It is therefore necessary to imbibe it with mercury until it has drunk 2 parts of it, or more if necessary. Now practice follows. Now let's move on to practice, as I announced above. And first, all bodies must be brought back to the raw material to make transmutation possible. I will show you here all that was said above. So I beg you, O my son, do not disdain my practice, because in it is hidden all our magisterium, as I have seen it in my occult faith. Take a pound of gold, reduce it to very shiny filings, mix it with 4 parts of our purified water, grinding it and incorporating it with a little salt and vinegar until combined. The gold having therefore been well amalgamated, put it in a large quantity of eau de vie, that is to say of mercury, and put it all in the urinae on our purified center. Do below one very slow fire for a whole day, then let it cool. And when it is cold, take the water and all that is with. Filters through a linen cloth, until the liquid part has passed through the cloth. Put aside what will remain on the linen, collect it, and having put in a fresh amount of holy water in the same vase as above, heats for a whole day, then filter as before. Repeat this until the whole body is converted into water, that is to say, into the raw material, which is our water. This done, take all this water, put it in a glass vase and cook over low heat until you see blackness appear on its surface. You will skillfully remove the black particles. Continue until the whole body is changed into a pure land. The more you repeat this operation, the better it will be. So anneal, removing the blackness, until darkness has disappeared, and water, that is, our mercury, appears bright. It is then that you will have the earth and the water. Then take all this earth, that is to say, the darkness that you have collected, put her in a vessel glass, pour holy water over it so that nothing rises above the surface of the water, let nothing float, and heat it over low heat for 10 days. Then crushed and put back new water. Anneal the earth thus coagulated and thickened without adding water. Finally, cook over high heat, always in the same vase, until the clay becomes white and shiny. Having therefore whitened and coagulated our earth, take the eau de vie which has been thickened with the help of a slight heat by the coagulated earth. Cook it over a violent fire in a good cucurbit equipped with its capital, until all that there is of water in the mixture has passed in the container, and that the calcined earth remains in the gourd. Then take 3 parts for 4 of one ferment. That is, if you have taken a pound from the body imperfect or gold, you shall take 3 pounds of ferment, that is sun or moon. You will first have to dissolve this ferment, reduce it to earth, and repeat, in a word, the same operations as for the imperfect body. Only then will you unite them, you will soak them with the water that has passed through the container, and you will cook for 3 days or more. Soak in new anneal and repeat this operation until these 2 bodies remain united, that is to say, do more than one. You will weigh. Their color will not changed. Then you will pour on them the already named water, little by little, until they absorb no more. In this union of bodies, the spirit is incorporated into them, and as they have been purified, it changes into their own nature. This is how the germ is transformed into bodies purified, which would not have happened before because of their coarseness and their impurities. The spirit grows in them, it increases and multiplies. Recapitulation. Now, Venerable Father, I will return to what I have said by applying it to the preparations of the ancient philosophers and to their teachings, so obscure, so incomprehensible. However weigh the words of the philosophers, you will understand, and you will admit that they have tell the truth. The first word of our magisterium or of the work is the reduction of mercury, the body, that is to say, the reduction of copper or another metal to mercury. This is what the philosophers call the solution, which is the foundation of the art, as Franciscus says. If you do not dissolve the bodies, you labor in vain. It is this solution of which Parmenides speaks, in the Pete of the philosophers. On hearing the word of solution, the ignorant immediately think of the water of the clouds. But if they had read our books, if they had understood them, they would know that our water is permanent, and that separated from its body, it therefore becomes immutable. So the solution of the philosophers is not water of the cloud, but it is the conversion of bodies into water from which they were first procreated, that is in mercury. In the same way, the ice is changed into the water which had first given birth. Behold then, that by the grace of God, the first element, which is water, and the reduction of this same body in the raw material. The second word is, what is made of the earth? That's what the philosopher said. Water comes out of the earth. You will thus have the second element, which is the earth. The third word of the philosophers is the purification of the stone, Morian says on this subject. This water putrefies and purifies itself with the earth, etc. Philosopher says, join the dry with the wet. The dry is the earth, the wet is the water. You will already have the water and the earth in itself, and the bleached earth with water. The fourth saying is that water can evaporate through sublimation or ascension. It becomes aerial again by separating from the earth with which it was previously coagulated and joined, and you will thus have the earth, the air, and water. This is what the philosopher in the Pete says. Blanch it and sublimate over high heat until it escapes the spirit which is mercury. That is why it is called bird of Hermes and chicken of Hermogenes. You will find at the bottom a calcined earth. It is an igneous force, that is to say, of an igneous nature. You will therefore have the four elements, earth, fire, and this calcined earth, which is the powder of which Morian speaks. Do not despise the powder that is at the bottom, because it is in a low place. It is the earth of the body. It is your sperm, and in it is the crowning, achievement of the work. Then with the aforesaid earth put the ferment, this ferment that the philosophers call the soul, and here's why. Just as the body of man is nothing without his soul, likewise the dead earth or filthy body is nothing without ferment, that is, without its soul. Because the ferment prepares the imperfect body, changes it in its own nature, as has been said. There's no ferments other than the sun and the moon, these two neighboring planets approaching by their properties natural. This is what makes Morian say, if you do not wash, if you do not whiten the filthy body, and you do not give it a soul, you will have done nothing for the magisterium. The spirit is then united with the soul and the body, it rejoices with them and settles down. Water alters, and what was thick becomes subtle. Here is what Astinus says in the Pete of the Philosophers. The spirit joins the bodies only when these have been perfectly purified of their impurities. In this union appear the greatest miracles. For all imaginable colors show themselves then, and the imperfect body takes, according to Barson, the color of ferment, while the ferment itself remains unaltered. O Father full of piety, may God increase in you the spirit of intelligence, so that you weigh well what I am going to say. The elements can only be generated by air and sperm. Now this sperm is mercury. Consider man who can only be begotten with the help of sperm, plants which can only be born of a seed, as much as is needed for generation and growth. There are some who, believing they are doing the best, sublimate the mercury, fix it, unite it to other bodies, and yet they find nothing. Here's why. A sperm can change me. It remains as it was, and it produces its effect only when it is carried in the woman's womb. This is why the philosopher Mercatus says, if our stone is not put into the womb of the female to be nourished there, it will not increase. O my father, here you are, according to your desire, in possession of the stone of the philosophers. Glory to God. Here ends Arnaud de Villeneuve's little treatise, given to the Pope, Benedict Xi, in the year 1303, Raymundus Lullus, Clavicula. Biographical notice on Raymond Lull. Raymond Lullus was born in Palma in the island of Majorca in 1235. His father, Seneschal of Jacques of Aragon, destined him for a career in arms. The youth of our Lull was turbulent and licentious. The marriage did not alter his conduct, but as a result of a violent love ended in an unfortunate way. He renounced the world, and after having divided his property among his children, he retired to loneliness. It was then that he formed the project to convert the infidels. That will be the great idea to which he will devote his whole life. To learn Arabic, he buys a Muslim slave, but this one, having guessed the purpose of his master, tries to assassinate him. Barely recovered, Raymond Lullus founded a monastery where Arabic was taught, where missionaries are trained. Then he travels across Europe addressing popes, kings, emperors, asking some for their moral authority, others for help and money to make his work fruitful. It was during these wanderings that he came into contact with Paris with Arnauld de Villeneuve and Duns Scotus. He visits Spain, Italy, France, Austria. Joining the example to the word, he passes twice in Africa, is condemned to death in Tunis, and escapes only thanks to the protection of an Arab scholar who had taken a liking to him. In 1311, we find him at the Council of Vienna. It was there that he received a letter from Edward II. This prince, showing himself favorable to his projects, Lully goes England. The king has him locked up in the Tower of London and forces him to do the great work. Raymond Lully changes into gold considerable masses of mercury and of tin 50,000 pounds, said Lenglet du Fresnoy. Of this gold we made the nobles with the rose or Raymondines fearing for his life. Lully escaped from London and returned to Africa. Barely landed, he begins to preach. The populace, indignant at his audacity, stoned him. The following night, some Genoese picked him up, still breathing, from under a heap of stones and carried him aboard their ship. But he died within sight of Palma. He was buried in the convent of the Franciscans of this city, 1315. Main works: Codicillus Sove Mecum Testamentum, Mercuriorum Liber, Clavicula, Experimenta, Polus Lastimtiarum, Theoria et Practica, Lapidarium, Testanum Novissimum, etc. Clavicula Seu Operlorium is found in the Theatrum Chimicum and in the Bibliotheca Chemica Mongei. As its name suggests, it is the key to all the other works of Raymond Lully. Raymond Lullus Clavicle, from Majorca. Treatise also known as the Universal Key, in which we will find clearly indicated all that is necessary to perfect the great work. We called this work Clavicle, because without it, it is impossible to understand our others' books, the whole of which embraces art as a whole, because our words are obscure to the ignorant. I have made many treatises, very extensive, but divided and obscure, as can be seen from the Testament, where I speak of the principles of nature and all that has relates to art. But the text has been subjected to the hammer of philosophy. The same applies to my book of the Mercure des Philosophers in the second chapter. On the fruitfulness of physical minds, the same for my book of the quintessence of gold and silver, and finally for all my other works where art is treated in a way complete, except that I always hid the main secret. Now, without this secret, no one can enter the minds of the philosophers and do something useful. That's why, with the help and permission of the Most High, to whom he has pleased reveal to me the great work, I will deal here with art without any fiction. But beware of revealing this secret to the wicked. Only share it with your friends intimate, although you should not reveal it to anyone, because it is a gift from God who makes it present to whom looks good to him. Whoever owns it will have a treasure eternal. Learn then to purify the perfect by the imperfect. The sun is the father of all metals, and the moon is their mother, although the moon receives its light from the sun. Of these two planets depend on the whole magisterium. According to Avicenna, metals can only be transmuted after having been brought back to their raw material, which is true. You must therefore first reduce the metals to mercury. But I do not mean here the vulgar volatile mercury, I speak of the fixed mercury, because the vulgar mercury is volatile. Full of a phlegmatic coldness, it is essential that it be reduced by the mercury fixed, hotter, drier, endowed with qualities contrary to those of ordinary mercury. Therefore I advise you, my friends, to operate on the sun and the moon only after having led to their raw material, which is sulfur and the mercury of the philosophers. O my children, learn to use this material venerable, because I warn you under the faith of the oath. If you do not draw mercury from these two metals, you will work like blind people, in the dark and in doubt. Therefore, O my sons, I conjure to walk towards the light, eyes open and not to fall blind into the abyss of perdition. Louisiana Clavicula, Lully. Chapter 1. Differences of vulgar mercury and mercury. Physical. We say, common mercury cannot be the mercury of the philosophers, by whatever artifice it has been prepared. For the vulgar mercury can only hold out in the fire with the aid of a foreign corporeal mercury which is hot, dry, and more digested than him. That's why I record our physical mercury is of a warmer and more fixed nature than ordinary mercury. Our mercury corporeal becomes flowing mercury, not wetting the fingers. When it is joined to the vulgar mercury, they unite and join so well with the help of a bond of love, that it is impossible to separate them from each other, even from water mixed with water. Such is the law of nature. Our mercury penetrates the vulgar mercury and mingles with it, drying up its phlegmatic dampness, taking away his coldness, which makes him black as coal and finally makes it crumble into dust. Note that the vulgar mercury cannot be used in place of our physical mercury, which possesses natural heat to the desired degree. It is even for this reason that our mercury communicates its own nature to ordinary mercury. Much more, our mercury, after its transmutation, changes the metals into pure metal, that is to say, into the sun and the moon, as we have demonstrated in the second part of our practice. But he does something more remarkable still. It changes the vulgar mercury into medicine, which can transmute imperfect metals into perfect ones. He changes vulgar mercury into true sun and in real moon, better than those coming out of the mine. Note again that our physical mercury can transmute 100 marks and more, ad infinitum, all that we will have of ordinary mercury, unless it runs out. I also want you to know something else. Mercury doesn't mix easily and never perfectly to other bodies if these have not previously been brought back to its natural species. This is why when you want to unite mercury with the sun or the moon of the vulgar, you will first have to bring these metals back to their natural species, which is ordinary mercury, using the bond of love. Natural, then the male unites with the female. Also, our mercury is active, hot and dry, while the vulgar mercury is cold, humid, passive like the female who is kept at home in tempered heat until clouding. So these two mercuries turn black as coal. That's the secret real dissolution. Then they join together in such a way that it becomes impossible to ever separate them. They then appear in the form of a very white powder, and they beget male and female children by the true bond of love. These children will multiply to infinity according to their kind, because of an ounce of this powder of projection, white or red elixir. You will make suns in infinite number, and you will transmute into moon any kind of metal coming from a mine. Louisiana Clavicula, R. Lully. Chapter 2, Extraction of Mercury from the Perfect Body. Take an ounce of cut lunar lime, Versar, Lune Coupel, calcine it as described at the end of our work on the Magisterium. This lime will then be reduced to a fine powder on a porphyry plate. You will soak this powder 2, 3, 4 times a day with good oil of tartar prepared in the manner described at the end of this work. Then you will dry it in the sun. You will continue thus until the said lime has absorbed 4 or 5 parts of oil, the quantity of lime being taken as unity. You will pulverize the powder on the porphyry as it was said, after having dried it, because then it is more easily reduced to powder. When it has been well porphyrized, it will be introduced into a long-necked matrix. You there add our menstrual stink, made with 2 parts red vitriol and 1 part saltpeter. You will have previously distilled this menstrue 7 times, and you will have rectified it well by separating it from its earthy impurities, so that in the end this menstruation will be completely essential. So we'll fight the matrix perfectly. We'll put it on over an ash fire with a few coals until you see the material boiling and dissolving. Finally, we will distill on the ash until all the menstruation has passed, and we will wait until the material is cold. When the vase is completely cold, we will open it, and the material will be placed in another very clean vase provided with its capital perfectly lut. We will place everything on ashes in a furnace. The lut being dry, we will first heat gently until all the water of the material on which one operates has passed through the recipient. Then increase the heat to dry out completely matter, and exalt the stinking spirits that will pass into the capital and from there into the receptacle. When you see the operation arrived, at this point you allow the ship to cool down, gradually reducing the fire. The vase being cold, you will draw from it the material that you will reduce to subtle powder on the porphyry. You will put the impalpable powder thus obtained in a well-fired and well-vitrified earthenware vase. Then you will pay by over plain boiling water, stirring with a clean stick, until the mixture is thick like some mustard. Stir well with the stick until you see a few globules of mercury appear in the matter. Theirs will soon have a big enough quantity according to what you have used of the perfect body, that is to say of the moon. And until you have a large amount, pour from time to time boiling water and stir until all the material is reduced to a body similar to common mercury. We will remove the earthy impurities with cold water. We will dry on a cloth. We will pass through a skin of chamois. And then you will see wonderful things. La Clavicula, R. Lully. Chapter 3, of the multiplication of our mercury. In the name of the Lord. Amen. Take 3 large pure luna in thin strips. Make an amalgam of it with 4 large well-washed common mercury. When the amalgam is made, you will put it in a small matrix having a neck of 1.5 feet. Then take our mercury extracted above from the lunar body, and put it on the amalgam made with the perfect body and vulgar mercury. Fight the vase with the best possible lut and let dry. Once this is done, shake the matrix vigorously to mix the amalgam well and mercury. Then place the vase where the material is in a small stove over a fire of a few coals only. The heat of a fire should not exceed to that of the sun when it is in the sign of the lion. A stronger heat would destroy your material. Also continue this degree of fire until the matter becomes black as coal and thick as mush. Maintain the same temperature until where the material will take on a dark gray color, when gray will appear. The fire will be increased by 1 degree and it will be twice as strong. It will be maintained in this way until the material begins to whiten and becomes of dazzling whiteness. We will increase the fire by 1 degree, and we will maintain this 3rd degree until the matter becomes whiter than snow and is reduced to a powder whiter and purer than ashes. You will then have the quicklime of the philosophers and its sulphurous mine that the philosophers have so well hidden. Louisiana Clavicula, or Lully. Chapter 4. Property of lime of philosophers. This lime converts an infinite quantity of vulgar mercury into a very white powder which can be reduced to real silver when united with some other body like the moon. Louisiana Clavicula, or Lully. Chapter 5. Multiplication of the lime of the philosophers. Take the vessel with the material, add to it 2 ounces of well-washed and dry common mercury, struggle with care, and put the vessel back where it was first. Regulate and govern the fire in degrees 1, 2, and 3 as above, until the whole is reduced to a very white powder. You can thus increase your lime to infinity. Louisiana Clavicula, or Lully. Chapter 6. Reduction of quicklime in real Luna. Having therefore prepared a large quantity of our quicklime or mining lime, take a new crucible without its lid. Put in 1 ounce of pure moon, and when it is melted, add 4 ounces of your powder agglomerated into pills. These little balls each weigh 1/4 ounce. We throw them one by one on the moon fusion. While continuing a violent fire until all the pills are melted, increase the heat even more so that everything mixes perfectly. Finally, we will flow in an ingot mold. You will thus have 5 ounces of fine silver, purer than natural. You will be able to multiply your physical mining at your thank you. Louisiana Clavicula, or Lully. Chapter 7 of our great work in white and red. Reduced to mercury, as said above your quicklime drawn from Luna. This is our secret mercury. So take 4 ounces of our lime, extract mercury from the moon as you did above. You will collect at least 3 ounces of mercury that you will put in a small, long mattress collar, as it has been said. Then make an amalgam of 1 ounce of true sun with 3 ounces of vulgar mercury and put it on the mercury of the moon. Shake vigorously to mix well. Fire the vessel carefully and put it in the furnace, adjusting the fire to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd degree. In the 1st degree, matter will turn black like coal. We then say that there a solar eclipse and moon. It is the true conjunction that produces a child sulfur, full of temperate blood. After this first operation, we continue with the fire of the 2nd degree until the matter is gray. Then we go to the 3rd degree until the moment when the material appears perfectly white. We increase then fire until the matter turns red like cinnabar and is reduced to red ashes. You can reduce this lime to very pure sun, doing the same operations as for the moon. Louisiana Clavicula, or Lully. Chapter 8. How to change. The above stone into a medicine that transmutes any kind of metal into true sun and true moon, and especially mercury vulgar and metal purer, than the one that comes out mines. After its first resolution, our stone multiplies 100 parts of prepared matter, and after the second, 1,000. We multiply by dissolving, coagulating, sublimating, fixing our matter, which can thus increase indefinitely in quantity and quality. So take from our white mineral, dissolve it in our stinky menses, which is called vinegar white in our testament. In the chapter where we say, take some good dry wine, put the moon in it, that is to say green water and sea, that is to say saltpeter. But let's not get lost. Take 4 ounces of our quicklime and dissolve in our menstruation, you will see it resolve into green water. Else share in 13 ounces of that same stinky menses you dissolve 4 ounces of well-washed common mercury, and as soon as the dissolution is complete, you will mix both solutions, put them in a well-sealed vessel, digest in horse manure for 30 days, then distill in a bain-marie until it passes nothing. Redistill over a charcoal fire to extract the oil, and then the material that will remain will be black. Take this one and distill for 2 hours on the ashes in a small stove. The vase being cold, open it and pour into it the water that has been distilled above in a bain-marie. Wash the material well with this water. Then distill the menses in a bain-marie, collect all the water. Add it to the oil and distill over the ashes, as has been said. Repeat this operation until the matter remains at the bottom of the vessel, black as coal. Son of science, then you will have the raven's head that the philosophers have so long sought, without which the magisterium cannot exist. Therefore, O my son, remember the divine supper of our Lord Jesus Christ, who died, was buried, and on the 3rd day came back to light on the eternal earth. Know well, O my son, that no being can live if he is not dead first. So take your black body, burn it in the same vessel for 3 days, then leave chill. Open it, and you will find a spongy, dead earth, which you will keep until needed, to unite the body to the soul. You will take the water that has been distilled in a bain-marie, you will distill it several times in succession, until it is well purified and reduced to a crystalline material. Soak up your body, which is the black earth, with its own water, watering it little by little and heating it all, until the body becomes white and resplendent. The vivifying water which clarifies has penetrated the body. The ship having been fought, you will heat up violently for 12 hours, as if you wanted to sublimate the mercury vulgar. The vase having cooled, you will open it, and you will find your sublimated white matter. It is our sigillated earth, it is our sublimated body, raised to a high dignity, it is our sulfur, our mercury. Our arsenic, with which you will warm our gold, is our leaven, our quicklime, and it generates in itself the son of fire, who is the love of the philosophers. Louisiana clavicule, our Lully. Chapter 9th, multiplication of the above sulfur. Put this material in a strong mattress and pour over it an amalgam made with quicklime from the first operation, the one we were reducing to silver. This amalgam is made with 3 parts of common mercury and part of our lime. You will mix and you heat on the ashes. You will see the material stir, then increase the fire, and in 4 hours the material will become sulfurous and very white. When she's been fixed, it will coagulate and fix mercury. An ounce of matter will change 100 ounces of mercury into true medicine. It will then operate on 1,000 ounces, and so on. Continued to infinity. Louisiana clavicule, our Lully. Chapter 10th, fixing multiple sulfur. We will take the multiplied sulfur, we will place it in a matrix, and we will pour over it the oil that had been set aside during the separation of the elements. Oil will be poured in until the sulfur is soft. Then we will melt on the ashes by heating to the 2nd and 3rd degree, until the whiteness inclusive. Then we will open the vessel and we will find a crystalline white plate. To try it, put a fragment of it on a hot plate, and if it runs without producing smoke, it is good. Then project one part of it on 1,000 of mercury and it will be completely transmuted into silver. But if the medicine had been infusible and had not flowed, put it in a crucible and pour oil over it drop by drop until the medicine flows like wax. And then it will be perfect and will transmute 1,000 parts of mercury and more ad infinitum. Louisiana clavicule, our Lully. Chapter 11th, reduction of white medicine into red elixir. In the name of the Lord, take 4 ounces from the blade aforesaid and dissolve it in the water of the stone which you have preserved. When the dissolution is complete, put ferment in a bain-marie for 9 days. So take 2 parts by weight of our red lime and add them to the vessel. You will ferment again for 9 days. Then you will distill in a bain-marie in a still, then on the ashes, adjusting the fire to the 1st degree until the moment when the matter turns black. This is our 2nd dissolution and our 2nd eclipse of the sun with the moon. This is the sign of the true dissolution and of the conjunction of the male with the female. Increase the fire to the 2nd degree so that the matter becomes yellow. Then the fire will be raised to the 4th degree until the material melts like wax and is of a hyacinth color. It is then a noble material and a royal medicine that quickly cures all diseases. It transmutes all kinds of metal into pure gold better than the ore natural. Now let us give thanks to the glorious Savior, who in the glory of heaven reigns 1 and 3 in eternity. Louisiana clavicule, our Lully. Chapter 12th, magisterium summary. We have demonstrated that everything contained in this treaty is genuine, for we have seen with our own eyes, we operate ourselves, we touch with our own hands. Now we will, without allegories, and briefly summarize our work. So we take the stone that we have said, we sublimate it with the help of nature and art, we reduce it to mercury. To this mercury, we add the white body, which is of a similar nature, and we cook until we have prepared the real mineral. This mining will multiply at your will. The material will again be reduced to mercury, which you will dissolve in our menses until the stone becomes volatile and separated from all its elements. Finally, we will perfectly purify the body and the soul. A heat natural and temperate will then make it possible to achieve the conjunction of body and soul. The stone will become mining. We will continue the fire until the material becomes white. We then call it sulfur and mercury of the philosophers. It is then that by violence from the fire, the fixed becomes volatile, insofar as the volatile will have rid itself of its gross principles and will have sublimated itself whiter than snow. We will throw what remains at the bottom of the ship, because it is good for nothing. Then take our sulfur, which is the oil we have already spoken about, and you multiply it in the still until it is reduced to a powder whiter than snow. We will fix the powders multiplied by nature and by art with water, until when tested by fire they flow smokeless like wax. It is then necessary to add the water of the first solution. Everything having dissolved, We will put something yellow, which is gold. We will unite and distill the whole spirit. Finally, we will heat to the first, second, third, and fourth degree until the heat reveals the true hyacinth color and the material fixes either fuse. You will project this matter on 1,000 parts of vulgar mercury, and it will be transmuted into fine gold. Louisiana Clavicule, R. Lully. Chapter 13th, Calcination of Luna for the work. Take 1 ounce of fine cupelli luna and 3 ounces of mercury. Amalgamate, first heating the silver and lamellae in a crucible, and then adding the mercury. Stir with a chopstick, while continuing to heat through. We will then put this amalgam in vinegar with salt. We'll crush everything with a pestle in a wooden mortar, while washing and removing impurities. We'll stop when the mix is perfect. Then we wash with warm and clear ordinary water. Then we will pass through a very clean cloth. What remains on the linen being the most essential part of the body, one will mix it with 3 parts of salt, grinding well and washing. Finally, we will calcine for 12 hours. We will start grinding again with salt, and this 3 times, each time renewing the salt. Then we will pulverize the material so as to obtain an impalpable powder, wash in hot water until all salty flavor is gone. Finally, we will pass through a cotton filter. We will dry out, and we will have white lime. We will put it in reserve to be sure. Serve when needed, lest the humidity spoil it. Louisiana Clavicule, R. Lully. Chapter 14th process for preparing oil from tartar. Take good tartar, whose fracture is brilliant, calcine it in the reverberatory furnace for 10 hours. Then you will put it on a marble slab after have sprayed it, and you will leave it in a humid place. It will dissolve into an oily liquid. When it is completely liquefied, it will be passed through a cotton filter. You'll keep it carefully. It will serve you to soak your lime. Louisiana Clavicule, R. Lully. Chapter 15th, Stinky Menstrue, to reduce our quicklime in mercury after dissolving it when it has already been soaked with scale oil. Take 2 pounds of vitriol, 1 pound of saltpeter, and 3 ounces of cinnabar. We redden the vitriol, we pulverize it, then we add the saltpeter and the cinnabar. We grind all these materials together and put in a well-lit distilling apparatus. We first distill on a slow fire. It is absolutely necessary. This water will distill, leaving its impurities, which will remain at the bottom of the cucurbite, and thus you will have this excellent menstrue. Louisiana Clavicule, R. Lully. Chapter 16th, Other menstrue, to serve as a solvent for the rock. Take 3 pounds of red Roman vitriol, 1 pound of saltpeter, 3 ounces of cinnabar. Grind all these materials together on the marble. Then put them in a large and solid matrix. Add some brandy. Ground 7 times then. Seal the vessel perfectly and put it for 15 days in manure of horse. Then we will gently distill so that all the water goes into the container. Then we will increase the fire until the capital is brought to white. We then allow to cool. We will remove the container. We will close it perfectly with wax, and we will keep it. Notice that this menstruation must be rectified 7 times, each time rejecting the residue. Only then will he be good for the work. Finis la clavicula, Llulli.